Please welcome King & Spalding partner, Sally Yates.
I have to thank you for your incredibly kind introduction and kind words, and thanks to all of you for this honor. I am humbled to be included in a list of the illustrious leaders that you heard, and you give just a few of them that have preceded me. So thank you. This means more to me than you can know. I am also grateful to be here as you are kicking off the Berkeley Forum for High School debate. And I've got a confession to make to you right out of the gate. I was not a debater in high school or college. And so I went online, I Googled this before coming in here today, and wanted to see, okay, so how does this debate thing actually work? And I watched some prior rounds. I thought I was just going to watch one, but I got kind of into it. And so I kept watching more and more. And I have to tell you, I was blown away by what I saw. And, you know, I can tell you right now, I would not have been able to do that in high school. I'm not sure that I could do it today either. That's probably a bigger confession. But I was absolutely blown away by it. And I know you don't need me really to tell you all the ways that what you're doing now in debate and speech is going to serve you later in life. I'm sure you've thought about these things, you've heard other people, but I'm going to mention a couple anyway. And, you know, it's not, to me, as I was thinking about this and watching this, it's not just that you learn how to be an effective public speaker, to be comfortable standing at a podium or in front of a group. That's an important thing, but to me that's really secondary to the more important issue of learning how to critically assess issues. How not just to accept what people are telling you, but to take an issue and to tear it apart and to look at it from all different angles. And then to test those arguments. And then, importantly, how to communicate once you decide what you believe, how to communicate that. But to me, of all of the things I think that you learn through this process, the ability to be able to see an issue from the other side is probably the most important. You know, in this increasingly polarized world that we're in, we all have a tendency to take a position and dig in, and then to vilify anyone who feels differently. But you, because you got to argue the other side at times, you have to actually take those arguments and tear them apart and try to put yourself in the shoes of others who have a different perspective. So developing empathy, to be able to see the world or an issue through someone else's perspective, that's got to be the most important thing that you get from all of this. Through this, you don't just identify the holes in your own argument. And I'm sure from a strategic standpoint, that's an important thing. But to me, more than that, you don't just learn how to speak, you learn how to listen. And I think that is one of the most critical elements in public discourse. You know, the least effective lawyers that I know are the ones who become so enamored with their own arguments, so enamored with the righteousness of their position, they can't see anything from the other side, and they can't see the holes that may exist in their position. So I think that having this empathy doesn't just make you a better advocate, it makes you a better person. The ability to be able to hear those other views and to empathize is part of what I think explains why so many of our country's leaders have been former high school or college debaters. I mean, you can go through the list. I Googled that too, and I'm sure you all have looked at that. Google's a marvelous thing. I'm sure that you all have looked at that before, but it's no surprise of everything from presidents to entertainers to leaders in business. So many of them were former high school or college debaters. Even George W. Bush, who was not a college debater, is reported to have actually taken the lessons that he learned from his college speech and debate class and taken those lessons to instruct his speechwriters on how he wanted his speeches to be constructed to be the most persuasive. And then Jack Dorsey, this is an interesting one to me, the founder of Twitter. Apparently Jack Dorsey was a master debater. Somehow now I guess we're down to debating in 280 characters instead of in full-out debates. But everyone from Nelson Mandela to presidents to, do you need any greater endorsement than the fact that Oprah was a master debater as well? But it's not just presidents or public leaders that are really defining our country. The real discourse that goes on, that defines who we are as a people, isn't just happening with people with public megaphones. It's happening in our everyday lives. When we're at work, or at school, or at sporting events, or at civic meetings, or around the dinner table with our own families. That's when we really begin to shape and define who we are as a country. And that's where your responsibility kicks in after this. Because democracy is not a spectator sport. And one of the things that's going to be different when you're not in a competition is that you're not going to have in some ways the luxury of being able to argue both sides. You're going to have to think about these issues and examine them and test them and look at them from the other perspective. But then you're going to have to decide what you believe is right. And once you decide what you believe is right, you just as an American, you don't have to be an elected official, just as a citizen of this country, you got a responsibility to do something about it. To speak up for what you believe in. To stand up for what is right. That's not something that's relegated to others. That's what all of us just as Americans have a responsibility to do. I envy you. I envy that you are on the front side of this arc that you have of being citizens of this country and being able, through how you stand up and what you say, to define who we are and what we stand for in this country. And invariably some of the issues that we're debating today are probably going to be there 10, 20, 30 years from now. But there are other issues that we can't even begin to contemplate now, that you all are going to be responsible for defining what the direction of our country is going to be. That's an exciting thing and an awesome responsibility as well. So at the risk of putting too much pressure on you, the future of our country is in your hands. I look forward to seeing what you do. Thank you again.